Tamers, Sojo back in day. Well, we're on to our penultimate day of our PG22 release countdown. With today's deck list, focusing on, well, the other half of the highlight of EX9, that being DM trait, though specifically the Kimeramon deck, which, following its, own DNA partner into Millenniumon, also definitely falls in the line of having high skill ceiling, given that this deck is also very toolboxy in its nature. Granted, compared to Machinedramon, it's more so that the toolbox is more self-contained within the EX9 set. Well, before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help with the algorithm. Starting off with the egg deck. For my take, I definitely lean more towards the new EX9 Chimemon, since its inheritable allows you to evolve into a version 2 trait Digimon at a reduced cost of 1 whenever the stack gets a face down source getting added. Though obviously you may also choose to go the Tokamon route or add it as the 5th egg, since it also does it but only for version 3. The mindset being for version 2 line is more so for the main pop-off piece for the deck, that being the new DM Greymon, which is also version 2. Hence why the emphasis on this route for the egg. And that's it for the egg deck. Now on to rookies. And well, for the core of the deck, ends up being, a 4-2 split between EX9 Gabu and EX9 Pal. And both of these pretty much just being the searchers of the deck, as both are able to snag, glean the top 3 and snag any DM trait card from it, and then be able to add a Digimon with the respective version trait as the bottom face down source. With the Gobble here granting jamming as the inheritable, and Pal being able to lend a on an attack, suspend imposing Digimon. And to back them up, it's a 2-2 split between new EX9 Bio and EX9 Kune, with both being the training bodies for the deck, as you can establish them raising and then trigger the training keyword, allowing you to have the top card of your deck as the bottom face down source for them, with Bio granting raid and Kune adding piercing for your established stacks to be able to run through and check security. Granted, on the returning to that Tokamon front, you may also throw in Patamon for the version 3 route as its searcher. Granted, the only reason why I don't really add it is more so the fact that with the searching, with the second ring effect to add a respective version trait as the bomb face down source ends up being a mandatory effect if you see it. So the reason why Pat isn't really involved is so that you don't end up accidentally being forced to put Kimera as the face down source. And then that's it for the rookie lineup. Now on to, what's essentially the meat and potatoes for the deck. The meat and potatoes equivalent for the deck compared to Machinedramon. In this case, going through versions, as for starting off with the toolbox, ends up being a single copy of EX9 Grey, EX9 Divi, and EX9 Airdraw. All being able to climb over any DM trait, all also having the training effect, and then having unique effects when attacking. The gray here being able to add the top deck to grant itself DP boost based on the number of face down sources you have. Devi here being able to pop a level 3 or lower, and then that threshold increasing for every 2 face down sources you have, adding it also from the top deck. And Airdrop from the top deck to then hit when posing Digimon with DP reductions, with Gray granting a your turn DP boost, Devi retail, and Airdra barrier. And then climbing, going into the next version, ends up being a 1-2-1 split of the new Anja, new Guru, and new Kabuteru. Also with the training keyword to add face down sources, with all of them having on play and one Digivolving effects, to slot in a Digimon from hand as bomb source to then trigger effects. Anja granting sec -1 in a DP reduction, Garu being able to strip sources, and Kabuteru being able to suspend and preventing cards from unsuspending. Anja granting a on delete protective effect that hits, that allows you to recover one while you're staying at 3 or 4 security. Guru also a jamming, and Kabuteru with a when attacking suspension effect. And then going into version 3s, it ends up being 1 Uni, 1 Ogre, and 1 Sukamon. With Uni having a 1 attacking, 1 Digivolving, to place a card from hand as bomb sources, and then while you're seeing it as many or fewer securities as face down sources than it currently has, you're able to recover 1, thus allowing you to refill with security. Ogre here being able to delete 1 level 4 lower when you activate the effect. And then Suka here being unique, as it's able to immediately Digivolve with the end of Digivolve at the end of turn by simply adding on 3 Digimon with version 3 trait, the version 3 trait from trash as face down sources, to then allow it to Digivolve into version 3 at no cost from hand or trash. Uni granting a 1 attacking DP reduction, Ogre granting a 1 attacking draw 1 trash 1, and Suka granting simply blocker. And then from there, say 1-1-2 split for version 4s for Kawaga, Tusk, and Monochrome. With all 3 of these having on play and 1 attackings, that place a card from hand as face down bomb source to then trigger their effects. Kawaga being able to suspend and also prevent unsuspension. Tusk being able to delete 1 Digimon that's at 4,000 DP or less. And Monochrome here being the go-to in the go-to version form, as it's able to hit your opposing Digimon with the Digivolve 1 for its effect. And to round off, the level 4 toolbox. It's a 1-1 split between the Dark Tyranno and Digimon. With Dark Tyranno being able to add a card from hand is face and source to then suspend one opposing Digimon and then allowing you, well, one of your Digimon to attack into your opposing Digimon. And then Digimon being able to, well, be able to trigger a draw 1 for its effect, and also granting, with Dark Tyranno, granting a on-delete suspension inherit, and Digimon being able to delete any level 4 lower. And also, since I glanced over it, Kuaga grants Piercing, another Piercing inherit, Tusk with a raid, and Monochrome for blocker. And that's it for the level 4 lineup. Now on to level 5s. With your main combo piece being, starting off with the main combo piece, that being the new Greymon, as I previously mentioned. Since it's able to come onto board and has the ruling effect to be able to be treated as a level 4 for Chimeramon's assembly. Since on play on Digivolve, for each of its own face-down sources, you're able to trash the top card of your deck. Then you may return 1 DM trait from trash to hand. With that effect, pretty much, well, porting up the gameplay, as you pretty much want this to, well, stack the trash with more sources that Kimeramon can make use of, as you want to have it come out through its assemble effect. Then additionally, Skullgrave on delete allows you to play out a level 4 lower DM trait Digimon from trash without paying the cost. And if you were, well, if this were to ever survive, and if you went the route 10 at level 6, it grants that same effect as an on delete. And then for the boss of the deck, that being the full playset of the new EX9 Kimeramon, who is a rush and sec +1 body, and then on play, you're able to, well, on play 1 Digivolve, get to place 1 level 4 lower DM trait from trash as its top source, then delete 1 opposing Digimon with the same colors as it, and then while it has 6 or more colors and sources, it gets to delete 1 opposing Digimon of each color. So if they run a deck that has one color, but also has dual color or multicolor cards, you're able to pop them as well. In addition, it has the alternate effect to gain plus 1000 DP for each different color it has in sources, thus making this quite a pretty big beat stick on top of its, stat line. And once again, the main way you'd normally want to bring this out is through the symbol effect, since you'd want to bring in 7 differently named level 4s to make it, to effectively come out for 3 cost. With the main idea here, obviously, this combo being more so to fill up your trash with with 6 colors, to then bring this out and assemble at its prime, or if you want the stack building route, can choose to also fill that condition, just needing to see a different color or in the right toolbox inherit from trash for the rest of it. And that's it for the Digimon deck. Though, if you are inclined, once again, going in a level 6 deck, the only real ones that I'd say come to mind that work well given the nature of the deck would be a few of the aces that we got from EX9. That being the new Blitzgrave, new Hyandro, and a new Titamon. Though, given the nature of the deck and also my own preference to not run these in response to, well, the training keyword, you definitely see why, as, well, running these, hitting these and being forced to have them and having them as a face down stack, and that's face down source in a stack, then seeing that stack blow up, you're gonna be hit with the overflow immediately. Thus, I excluded these as an option to avoid running that risk. Then from there is the options. For me, for my build, I end up going for a full playset of meat, full playset, 2 copies of protein, and 2 copies of File Island. Well, for the most part, these end up, well, pretty much representing the V-pen in the way, with meat being you feeding it, protein feeding it, well, protein, and File Island as the setting. With meat being a draw 1 and then setting itself up for its delay, with the delay allowing you to place one card from hand face down as any of your DM trait Digimon's bottom source, to then allow it to digivolve up, at a reduced cost of 2. While protein here is also, a draw 1, but has the delay effect, useful delay effect, to trash the bottom 2 face down sources of one of your DM trait Digimon to allow it to unsuspend, which ends up being a non-issue given, well, how much face down sources you can pretty much get, and may allow you to set up trash by pretty much, pitching away any face down sources that you got through training. And then File Island here being pretty much the field spell option in the deck, allowing it to, for all turns, grant all of your DM trait Digimon extra plus 1000 for each face down source they have. Pretty much buffing mostly your early game, as well as making Kimera even more beefier when needed. As well, it's able to be a pseudo search, as all these option field spells are, as it pretty much replaces the bottom security card. And then for its security effect, it allows you to play out a cost 5 or less. 5 or less DM trait from hand or trash without paying the cost, thus being a bit disruptive depending on what you have available. And that's it for the option lineup. Now on to Tamers, which ends up being, highlights, given that it is the DM trait. Something pseudo outside the archetype is the 2 copies of good old EX9 Analog Youth. Since he ends up being the searcher of the deck, a searching Tamer in the sense that you're able to top deck 3 and add any Digimon cards from among them while trashing the rest. This pretty much allowing you, to speed up tempo as well by establishing more cards in trash. In addition to its normal use effect, that whenever it sees a level 5 or higher Digimon of yours that's being deleted, allows you to suspend himself down to gain 1 memory and hatch an egg, thus allowing you to sort of reset after each level 5 defeat. And then from there, for another highlight, being the new EX9 Analog Youth, who at the start of your main allows you to place down a card from hand as a face down source of any one of your Digimon. Then, during your turn, whenever a face down card gets placed as the bottom source, as a source, you get to spin himself down, and then gain 1 memory, and while you're sitting at 7 or fewer cards in hand, you're able to draw 1. In addition, it also grants the global opponent's turn effect a reboot to any of your Digimon with face down sources. And just for necessity's sake of a memory setter, we also have the new EX9 Analog Man to also help facilitate. Since you're able to, memory set, excuse me again, and during your turn, whenever any of your play costs 7 or higher DM trait Digimons get played, you're able to suspend this Tamer down for draw 1 and gain 1, then being able to add 1 card from hand as face down source, thus playing into pretty much mostly synergizing with Kimeramon and Skull Greymon as they meet that threshold, play cost threshold. That's it for the deck. Now on to combos. Starting off with the mulligan hand. For the most part, ideally you'd want to see your rookies, with that split ideally being either training rookie and either searcher to play out. From there, you definitely want to see either analog use to have them established, with EX9 definitely being the one you ideally want to see early on to be able to gain back memory and be able to keep your hand healthy every time you put down a card from hand as a face down source. From there, now the options, definitely saying Meat and Final Island for their utility, establishing the on board to be used later on, and Final Island to grant a global buff to all your DM trait Digimon with face down sources. And from there, Analog Man and Protein for more utility, with Analog Man obviously being the memory tamer for this deck. And then from there, second priority is definitely either of your level 4s that have 1 Digievolving effects and 1 attacking, or more or less primarily 1 Digievolving as a baseline to give more flexibility to yourself, so that you're able to trigger off so you know when need be to trigger it. And lastly is the rest of the level 4 lineup, Skull Grey and Kimera, since for the most part, there's a bit of flexibility given in the deck. Just, again, you're rolling with the punches as you're sort of gambling off of what gets removed or put under through training. Since for the most part, Kimera is the start of the pop-off, since you'll be able to know yourself based on how many face down sources he has to then set up for a Chimera later on. Then on to the combos. For the first combo, it's pretty much the bread and butter really, as for the board suit, having established down a rookie in the back that used training in the turn prior, and an established analog EX9 analog youth board, and also having pretty much a few names already established in the trash. Since from there, pretty much move out the rookie from raising, then triggering the analog youth, and tucking away a card from hand as bottom source, that being anything, any level 4 you'd want to actually pitch through this effect. And then, through that effect, being able to immediately trigger analog it since it saw a new face down source being added, to then trigger the draw 1 gain 1. Then building off from there, you definitely want to go into either your on play when attacking or on play when digivolving. Well, when digivolving or when attacking level 4s as a flexibility point for these plays, since from there you may either choose to trigger the one digivolving to add a source, another face down source from hand, to then trigger Suno, or trigger your one, triggering it as a one attacking, to then trigger Suno. Since, all intents and purposes, the idea is to pretty much then trigger the reduced evolution into Skull Gray. So then, on Digivolve, we'll then mill based on how many face down sources you have. With definitely the, well, 3 definitely being a midpoint. So proceed to, well, mill yourself 3, and also this being a way to search out Kimeramon, since you're able to recycle any DM trait from trash after that. From there, it all depends on how board flies, since you could either swing the Skull Gray in and pretty much have it not survive, thus blowing it up and establishing more inherits for Chimera to use, or if it survives and you've established the necessary amount, bringing out Chimera on Assemble by pretty much adding in these 7 sources. To its stack. And then trigger its own effect. To then place a card from hand as its top source. Ideally is a level 4, but once you slash that, you're then new, well, with that definitely being based on what you have in hand to be able to counter the opponent's board. Since you'll be wanting to go color for color based on what they have on board. And then Chimera going even wider once it has 6 colors underneath itself to be able to pretty much hit a singular color and aim their respective multicolors that fit with their deck. Since from there, so you have Chimera established, it's pretty much matter of them attempting to, well, deal with it before it constantly, well, keeps going in for more attacks. Since you have multiple routes to allow flexible play, since again, you can go the route of making sure your DM traits survive through File Island, granting them boost based on how many face down sources they have, thus granting a secondary stack that the opponent has to deal with aside from Chimera. And then Youth and Man both being able for utility, and Meat and Protein for other means, since returning to if the Skull Greymon survives, you're able to pop an established meat to also send sources, well, face down sources, to then allow the Skull Grey to attack once again. And returning to, well, any of the other examples, let's say we go about it the other way around. Let's say a searching being forced to have a searching rookie. Since from that point in the board state, you pretty much want to well, have Analog Youth and Meat established on board. Then triggering off the PAL. Nope, triggering off the Analog Youth. To then slot in something, a parent you want to set up for later. Youth, trigger the Suno, and then go into your version 4 level 4s. Then from there, you're able to do things accordingly of what you want to do. With Meat definitely allowing you to also trigger off, establishing another face down source from hand, all the while signing up for it to go into Skull Gray again at the reduced cost of 1. Or depending on you want to, for the climb, be also used as a means to go into Kimera to get a Kimera with multi-source, multi-face down sources, to then also, grab other colors from underneath. Since from there, it's pretty much a disposable Kimera that you want to use. But relatively to, the machine deck, you have a little bit more flexibility given how, bit lower to the ground most of your stack building is. Since, overall, you're pretty much be early rushing the opponent. And that has been my look at the Kimeramon deck for the EX9 format. And, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to keep up with what I'm doing. And this is Cyberjaws signing off.